So, hi Jatin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mishika.
Great. So, how are you keeping up with the lockdown?
I end up giving interviews and I end up doing interviews. So right now I'm giving the interview. So it's a lot of interesting stuff going on within the community. So that's pretty interesting.
Okay, so that's productive. So, can you start by telling us a bit about your childhood and your educational background?
Okay, so my education background is a very interesting story. So I did BE engineering from Nirma Institute of Technology. So 01 to 05 in IT.
Hmm.
So the tricky thing was I was detained in 2005.
Okay,
So technically, I completed my degree in 2007, but I had started working from 2005.
okay, okay.
So the timeline is like 2001 to 5 education. From 5 to 9, I worked with different companies. And 2009, I started ECHI, so which is in the 12th year now.
So,
Uh,
back then when you were studying or you were in college or even in school, what were your dreams and aspirations as a child? Like, did you had it all sorted out? Okay, this is what I want to do, or you figured out
Not
in the
at all.
process?
Not at all. Even we are trying to figure out right now. So back in the school, there was no ambition because I was living in a place where not many people gone more than the eighth standard. And I was one of the few guys who could study more. So there was no benchmark for us to aspire to. And I was very happy with whatever was happening. So in 12th, some of my smartest friends got into engineering. And that's why I chose that path. So there was no clear cut goal that, what I wanted to do with life. But I was always into reading. So I would read. And then while in engineering, I discovered that, okay, in management is something where probably I can make a career on. But no clear cut dreams that I had while I was in school or a college.
Okay, so it was like you were going with the flow and then seeing what
Yep.
works out best for you.
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell the audience about each eye and what the vision exactly is and how the mechanism and how it works?
Okay. Awesome. So we are in the 12th year of each eye. So it started in 2009. So what we do, so our one line message is that we host very interesting startup networking meetups in 25 global cities. Uh, so for the very long time, EHI was a small, nice initiative where we would do small meetups. For the first 5 years, we used to do meetups in Gujarat, in various cities in Gujarat. Then we had started in a lot of other cities. In the 11th year, we started hosting in Melbourne, in New York, in London, in Tel Aviv. So last 1 year was very incredible. So right now, what EHI does, EHI does a lot of those interesting meetups. So what we realize is whichever initiative you start with, at the end of the day, you will want to bring people together. So what we are
Absolutely.
trying to say, then we do a very good job at that. That's why
Okay.
now, of course, there is a community. There are a lot of people who would have found partners. There are examples of people found investments. There are examples people have found their co-founders. But each guy's core job is to bring people together and deliver that positive vibe and experience.
Okay. So how were the first few years with each eye? Like how did you initially build the great community?
Yeah. So for the first 7 and 8 years, it wasn't a business. Of course, we thought that someday we will make it a business, but we had a certain things that we will not build a business like this. Like we never wanted to get a sponsors because this is not the direction we want. So even if you see today, we don't have any sponsors for any of our events. Neither our website has any ads. So for the first 8 years, we didn't make money from each eyes initiatives. How we started was in Ahmedabad. That was around 2009. There was a boom. There was a rise of people getting into entrepreneurship, and then nationally also there were a lot of people who were getting interested in that. So the initial idea was that some of those people will come together and try to help each other. So it started literally at a tea stall, and that's the name E-Chai, Entrepreneurs Chai. So what if group of founders come together and have a chai and have a good, meaningful discussion? So we started literally at a tea stall, and then it grew from that. And since name had a very interesting vibe to it, so a lot of people were really interested in this name. And what is Ichai? So for the first 5 years, it was primarily people in Ahmedabad meeting again, and then it evolved into different formats. Then we will do a demo days. We will invite industry leaders to come and share their experiences. We'll do after hours, which was a like entire like event starts at 10 p.m. in the night. People come and talk about that challenge, and rest of the guys try to figure out a solution for that. So one by one, everybody goes with that. So for the first 5 years, so a lot of people who were part of the community in the beginning, they had built a very strong bond, and we had built a good name in Ahmedabad that people who are into startups, they are very much connected to each other. So what used to happen was there were a lot of national players who would want to do stuff in Ahmedabad, so they'll discover us. So when we wanted to expand in other cities, there were already people who knew us, because when they did their own programs in Gujarat, each I helped them. So our transition was very easy, because anyway, and another thing that happened was those who were part of Icha in Ahmedabad, they moved to other cities. So for example, Kavita, she was in Ahmedabad, she moved to Indore, then she started leading the Indore chapter. So initial first 5, 6 city growth happened very organically, and not because we wanted to do it, but because people associated with Ichai moved to those cities and they took the initiative from there. Yeah.
So, like when you started, do you had this growth chart in mind that this is where we want to see Icha in the next 5 or 10 years, or it just went with the flow and you uh, gained success and you build
So
a
so
community?
there were so there were a couple of things. We were very ambitious. Like someday probably we'll make it, but we will not go gaga about it and like this should happen, this should happen. We are very fine with whatever is happening. So both the front, like on one front, we are very optimistic that probably and luckily we could see that in the 11th year. That 5 years just Ahmedabad, but in the 11th year we could do it everywhere. So there are very few indie organizations which could do that. Typically, if you see all the organizations which are a multinational presence, they are backed by a lot of big tech companies or backed by a lot of industry groups. Very indie small communities will be able to scale. So growth happened, but that wasn't the conscious decision always. It just happened organically. But our idea was that whatever we do, idea is not to just be the small poor alternative of somebody else. So the big meetups are not happening in Ahmedabad, happening in Bangalore, or so we'll try to copy that. That was not the idea. The idea was that we will figure out our own use cases. It may happen that what is happening may resemble what is already happening in larger ecosystems, but we would do things because we wanted to do it, or we see that other people wanted to do it, and not just see that in what is happening in Silicon Valley, what is happening in Bangalore, and then let's do it in Ahmedabad. So that was the thought process, but very optimistic. But we never went behind that. That we should have this scale, because of course, idea is that if you have 100 people really happy with you, then it is very easy to get to the 10,000 instead of worrying about how do we get to the 10,000.
True.
Yeah.
So, in these 12 years, what were the major obstacles or the competitions that you faced? Like, in when you started, were there also similar companies that were doing the same thing?
So it's interesting because we were in the zone of bringing founders together. So typically, every other company is also in the similar zone, right? Event communities, large corporates. So idea is that we end up collaborating quite often. So on one side, it would look the same, like small the EHI meetup would look very similar to some other meetup. So idea was we could collaborate with a lot of other people. So for example, if there are 100 people in the society, only 5% of are into startups. Rest
Okay.
95% of the people, everybody is trying to figure out. So those who are doing similar stuff, we should work together to reach out to another 95% of the people, and then worry about which are the people who are part of my community. So we ended up collaborating with a lot of other similar looking communities, and we evolved ourselves. So we do meetups ourselves, but we have built an online platform where we list other meetups. People can get connected online. We had built stories where we feature interesting stories about a lot of other organizations. So for an individual, each I does meetup, but there are 100 other people who also do meetups. So it is their call that with which meetup they would want to be part of.
So,
Yes,
yeah, I can
in
please
every
finish.
city that we work, we end up working with a lot of partners. In Hyderabad, in Chennai, there are at least 10, 15 partners in each city where we collaborate quite often.
So, how did you
So coexisting is the yes. Please.
how did you grow internationally? Like you started from Ahmedabad and then to different cities of the world. How did that happen?
So it's an interesting story. So always, so that was around 2014. So we always started, probably we'll go to Singapore, because Singapore is the like a center of Asia in terms of startup ecosystems. So in 2014 we had traveled and we met a lot of good people, and we had built this online curator tool, basically, which aggregates information from social media platforms and gives a contextual information about it. So we used to curate a lot of stories about a lot of these global organizations. And another thing happened in 2018. Say before that, every year we would just travel to Singapore and just meet people. In 2018, what had happened that we had a decent scale and decent name, and there was a guy from Jwaland who was part of Ichai in Ahmedabad. He went to Singapore to do his masters at Nanyang Business School. So he was part of setting up an entrepreneurship club in his college. So each I
Okay.
helped them set up that. We did a lot of programs together. So that was a foot in the door for us. That in Singapore we did a meetup. Then what we realized that we were getting far bigger traction in bigger ecosystem than what we were getting in India. Then the same thing happened. There was another person similar story. Happened to be part of Ichai in Ahmedabad. Went to Melbourne to do masters. So same. He was part of a lot of clubs in Melbourne. So we started doing a lot of meetups with RMIT, and that was again a foot in the door. And then we had this expertise to bring a lot of people together. So we will bring in the A-list speakers. We will bring in the audience. So we were not dependent on local partners to bring good speakers, bring audience who is interested in that. And then one by one, it just happened that we could do meetups, and in every city we were able to bring the best. So next time it became even easier. So for example, when we wanted to launch in Toronto, there were already 3 potential partners with whom we could have collaborated. And then the same thing happened. We could bring the good speakers. And there was another interesting thing happened with our rise was internationally, there was a rise of people who were traveling for some business purposes. So for example, somebody who was in Bangalore and wasn't part of Ichai Bangalore meetups, when that individual will travel to Singapore or San Francisco, they would want to see a network which is also in their home city. So probably they would never be part of Ichai Bangalore meetups, but they would end up becoming part of what Ichai would do in Singapore or San Francisco or any other city. So we were able to get a lot of such people. So every time when we would do a meetup in Estonia, we would at least have 50% of people who happened to be in Estonia at that point in time.
Okay.
So that was it got held because of this momentum of people traveling all over for some business purposes.
So 12 years
Yeah.
back, how would you describe the startup scene in India? Like when you
Okay.
started?
So initially, people were very optimistic. Like people just it was like step one, right? Like people would get fascinated reading stories about somebody getting funding or somebody made it big in just 20, 21 years. So there were a lot of people who were getting into it. So very hopeful and optimistic about what will happen. Now what is happening is that people have more information. That is, people have seen stories of successes. People have seen stories of failures. So now there is abundance of information. In 2009-10, there were very less information. That okay, I've read a story that Sequoia Capital has invested in some startup, but what next? So a lot of people were very optimistic about it. Now there is abundance of information. So the challenge is that which information to rely on. That people have succeeded, people have failed. So what would happen to me? So that's a challenge now. But 2009-10, people were very optimistic, and I was very optimistic that okay, let us do something interesting, which might, and luckily that has helped because 2009 we were one of the guys who were doing like one of the initiatives around businesses. Right now, startup has become the mainstream. So every organization, every community wants to do things around startups. So we have this interesting advantage that we've been at this thing since last 11 years. So every organization would come and say that, and so each IS would have done some of the things that a lot of people would want to try on.
Okay.
Yep.
So as you mentioned that you do not have any ads on your website or you do not have sponsors, right?
Yep.
So so can you explain us how is the revenue generation done?
Yeah. So the business model is memberships. So we have individual memberships. So for the first 8 years, it was zero. So there was no business model. In the ninth year, it started as 100 rupees per year. And then every 6 months, what will happen that we would optimize a lot of things that we will do. Or there are going to be certain set of people who will get greater value compared to what somebody else will get. So every 6 months, we are able to raise the prices. So it started at 100 rupees per year, became 500 rupees per year, 1000 rupees per year. Right now, it is 2000 rupees per year. So you take up an annual pass of each eye, where a member gets access to all our meetups happening throughout the year, or a lot of our partner meetups. And you get some offers posted by other each eye members. So in 2000 rupees, you get access to each eye meetups happening throughout the year, partner meetups, and the offers. And we have an institutional membership. So CII, which is IIM Ahmedabad's incubator, they are our institution member.
Okay.
So they pay us a certain slightly larger set of amount. But what we do is we plan joint programs with them. We don't do anything extra outside of what is our core thing, that to bring people together and deliver a great experience.
Okay, so
So
as
this
you said,
membership thing, yes.
so
So this, please.
so you mentioned that in the starting 8 years, I guess so, the membership charge was zero. So was there
Yeah.
any side hustle you were doing to like
Yes,
support yourself?
absolutely. So between me and my partner, we used to do some side projects. So whenever we kept our cost very low. So that was one thing. And we used to do some outsourcing projects to take care of our cost. And we had built good friends. So whenever were in a super financial crunch, we will reach out to some of our friends for that support. So even if today somebody else asks me that what to do when we start up, I would always suggest make good friends. Because in any entrepreneurship journey, a time will come where you are very smart, everything, but a vulnerable moment will come. And if you have a good support system, that goes a long way in helping you sustain or come out from that situation. So we kept our cost very low. We used to do outsourcing projects, and we had a good set of friends. So that helped us sustain for longer.
Okay, so how did you figure out that like 8 years have been gone and so this is the right time to
I got married.
monetize it? Okay.
I got married. So every time a marriage anniversary comes, the EJ's price increase. But idea is that there is a greater value that people get. So every time what happens, if there are like 30,000 people who are part of the network, there are going to be certain set of people who are getting greater value, and that's why we realize, okay, now what we charge is giving greater value, so we would increase the prices. But the first one happened like coincided with my marriage.
So how important do you think is social media or in digital marketing in general for this
Huge,
startup world today?
massive. Ichai, one of the reason Ichai works very well because we are able to leverage the power of social media
Okay.
or digital, for example.
Hmm.
So one of the key element of Ichai is to do these programs and invite good speakers. So one of the good thing we do is, and we typically don't go via business. That I ask my friends to reach out to. I identify email and I directly send an email to them.
Okay.
And there are very high chances they'll respond to that. So it saves a lot of time. So idea is that, like I will use this Hindi quote के, and this is I share with my friends कि आपकी बात में दम हो तो माहौल अपने आप बन जाता है. So
Absolutely.
if you have a substance in your message, you don't need any connection. You can send a message to email to someone, tweet to someone, LinkedIn message to someone, and then they'll respond. So we were able to use that really well. So we were able to. So whenever we wanted to do say events in London, we don't need any connection. I would just identify the set of people who could potentially be good speakers, and I'll just email them. And that we are able to scale that up everywhere. So that came really handy for us. That without any connection, without any network, you can still get things done if you have a substance in your message.
Right. So like now we are all in the midst of a pandemic and a crisis. So how has each eye modified the needs? Like obviously you cannot hold meetups or
Correct.
gatherings right now.
So a couple of things happened. So our core product was to deliver good physical meeting experience, and people would become members for that. Since that is not happening, like everybody else, a lot of things are going online. So we are doing a lot of webinars. So that is one. Then like easy transition that each has done, and similar other organization everybody has done. Another thing that we have done is that we have improvised on the platform. So we have introduced this one-on-one calling feature where you can book one-on. So what we realize that now people have access to a lot of webinars. Earlier, what used to happen if you are in Chennai or Hyderabad or any other city, physical meeting experiences are less, right? There are 20 meetups happening.
Right.
But with webinar, for the same individual, there are thousands of webinars happening. So what we have decided that, our own meetups will not do a typical meetup. We'll do a very small focus topic, 10, 12 participants only. And we introduced this one-on-one calling. So where people would want to build those meaningful relationships and not just see those 12, 14 square screens and not just build an individual relationship. So our idea is right now we are trying to focus on building those individual relationships. So in addition to meetups and curating information, we are doubling down on our one-on-one connection, where to all the paid members, we reach out, ask them what kind of people they are interested in, who could be their potential business connects, and helping them connect with similar people and helping them connect. So we build this lot of interesting inbuilt platform where they can book a one-on-one call and have those meaningful discussions. So that is a very exciting thing that is happening at EJ right now.
So the people of today, like the youth of today, they might say, okay, we have LinkedIn and Telegram on which we do have communities.
Yeah.
So how do you make Ichai stand out from all the other online communities that we have?
So there are a couple of things. It is very tricky to answer this question because on the face of it, everything looks similar. So our idea is that those who are able to take that jump to be part of the community after evaluating a lot of community, deliver them a greater experience. So if somebody who's part of each they will really vouch for us. That but the same individual will also be part of some other communities. So none of the community becomes replaceable for everybody, and that is what we are trying to do. So what we say that each does one thing, but as a startup founder, they would need 99 other things. So each will also provide you information about those 99 because same individual will be part of a lot of other things. So in a way, we are able to stand out. Like we end up working with everybody. So we are not competing with everybody. Probably one piece would look similar, but for other piece, we are complementing to a lot of other communities. And our pitch is always that we are good people to be with. So like we are nice guys. Like we will always do the right thing. So probably we are nice people. And for an individual who's evaluating, it is their call to understand whether they like nice or they want a more a community which can give them more profits. But this is our pitch always.
So, like, I'm sure you must have traveled a lot for the meetups and discussions and the panel discussions
Yes.
you're talking about. So, what is your favorite startup story that you've heard and like that you think would encourage a lot of people?
So a couple of startup stories, and they have mentioned this publicly also. So I can just repeat what they have mentioned. Else, a community member should tell why community has worked for them. There is this company called Menstrupedia. Aditi Gupta is the co-founder of that initiative. So we used to do a lot of demo days in Ahmedabad in 2009, 10, 11, 12. So for a lot of exciting startups, each demo days were one of the first platform where they would have got a chance to showcase in front of a larger audience or a larger public. So Aditi had mentioned that Ichai's demo day was one of the first platform for her to present Menstrupedia. Now Menstrupedia has become much bigger, so that is helping us now because of Aditi, a lot of people reach out to us that okay, she has mentioned about Ichai also. So what are you guys up to? Another company is allevents.in. Amit and Ruchit are the co-founders. So we would partner with a lot of other initiatives where there was an event where we were the co-organizers. They attended that event and they found, okay, they can build a platform around that where people can discover events. So All Events has again become a very popular company, very successful, bootstrap, profitable startup. And now that is happening. There were a lot of people where each I would have played a very small role in that journey, but they ended up becoming much bigger.
Okay.
So now that since they are bigger, they recommend us. So all the similar people, they discover us with a very strong recommendation that somebody who is building a very successful business is going out of the way to tell that Icha is a good community to be with. And these are the two very interesting people. But on the other side, for a typical community, like people who have found partners, people have found customers, co-founders. Two people haven't got married yet at Ichai. Hopefully, we will get there. That people meet each other at a Ichai event and then they get married. Everything else has happened.
Okay, so this has happened.
Yes.
Okay, so my next question being like in today's world, it is like very costly to sustain yourself and your family, and it's also a
Yep.
very competitive world. So, what mindset do you have to build a successful startup and like not give up?
So couple of things. Our journey is not that I'm very successful. That's why I could give name to the people. But I'll just say what is my thought process and what we are trying to follow at each. Like you have to be very skillful. Like the domain that you are operating in, you should be aware about what you are operating in, not just depending on somebody's core answer that your intellect about that subject is that somebody has mentioned it somewhere. You should be skillful about the domain that you are getting into. You should be resourceful. That so what has happened? What typically what happens? People would just wait for somebody to reach out to them, and then only they can support. So idea is that proactively, can you help more people? Can you connect people with the relevant set of people? So whenever you will need it, you will already have 100 people to look up to whom you would have helped. Typically, what happens? People wait for, and then they need help. It becomes very tricky to ask somebody for the help because you haven't done anything for that individual. So increase the quota of the people to whom you have helped. So if you be very skillful, very resourceful, and very helpful, that if you have helped a lot of people, when you will need some support, people would help you, and be very grateful. Like you should to have a humility. So these are the things. Even if you don't get a lot of numbers, it will be very you live a very good life. Building a startup, being a good profession is a way of living a good life. So these three things can help you live a good life, even if you don't make multi-crore rupees or anything. You'll still enjoy your journey, and probably that is also more important than what you will actually achieve.
Absolutely. So you at each, I believe that it is all about lifting um, the other people, lifting each other.
Yes, and that is why I'm very inspired by Mitti Ke Rang's initiatives. So amazing work that you guys are up to.
So what is the ultimate advice that if you had to give to your younger self, like what would it be?
Calm karo. Keep executing. Like calm. Like sometimes what happens is that people don't actually do the stuff. They will just wait. So my mantra is that execute, execute, execute. Whatever ideas you have, just do it. That is the mantra that we follow, and that is something that we would want to tell people.
Okay, and so what is the similar question but with a different set of.
Yeah.
So what is the one thing that you would change in your startup journey? Ki, I wish I had done this differently.
So probably when we started up, we were in a dilemma that probably if I go back again, I would choose very specific things that we would wanted to do. Our first idea was like the tagline was solutions for life. So we wanted to do everything. As we build more star, as we become little wiser, then we went to very specific. So now what we say, we do this very one particular piece of bringing people together. So that is something that we have learned over the period of time, and this is what I would want to recommend somebody that if you just do pick up those one or two things and do a great job, and then it will give you opportunity to build it bigger.
Absolutely. So like, which is your favorite place? Like, which country or which city do you think has the best environment for someone who wants to start an enterprise?
So couple of things. I'm in Ahmedabad and I absolutely love this city because Ahmedabad is very interesting. It's not like a metro. It's also not a small town because it also has a lot of these big academic institutions. So it's a good tasting ground. So if you could do certain stuff in Ahmedabad, you have got a glimpse of what you could do in a metro and what you could do in a smaller towns. That was a very personal thing. But now what has happened that everybody is equal. You live in San Francisco, you live in Singapore, you live in Bangalore. Everybody has internet connection and they are doing this online programs. So post COVID, probably it has become much flat. The world has become much flatter now. But typically, if you have a choice, then bigger ecosystem could also. But now things have changed. So it's not that you should be in a certain city. We are in Ahmedabad and we are able to build a global network. I need not travel to a lot of these cities. Plus, being in a smaller city or ecosystem, you save a lot on cost. So don't get a lot of overhead costs. So probably it's a very individual call. But if you have a choice, go to the city which is very beautiful. So if I have a choice again, probably I'll see Goa or Udaipur. That probably in the evening we can have a good walk. A place where you can live a very interesting life. If I have a choice, but I'm absolutely fine with what in Ahmedabad also.
Okay, so like I just have a question which is not related to a startup or any. So, like, do you prefer the city life more or the minimalistic lifestyle wherein you can just relax and work? So, like, very close to the nature or the city hustle lifestyle?
Yes, minimalistic life. Like if you see my home, then there is a plant over here. So this
Yeah.
is what, and it gives a Rajasthani vibe to it. That so we'll prefer that compared to the intensity of the city. But luckily, that's when Ahmedabad gets you the best of the both. There is a intense, like there is a very high-paced city life also, and you can have, and that is the way we build our business. We didn't build each, we built business the way we wanted to live our life. So I'm not worried about sponsors. If I had a sponsors, then I'll have to really worry about you. how many hits I'm getting on my website, how
Mhm.
many people are attending my events. That's why we have built a business that we wanted to live a life. Like, probably we might not achieve a lot of revenue, but we are absolutely fine with that. So this is probably same thought process we apply. That's why that, like if I have to choose, probably a laid back life would be something that I'll choose for.
So, do you plan to get any sponsors, or you want to function independently?
Independently. If somebody comes and says that, without me asking you, so a lot of these institutional members are a step in that direction, but they don't ask us to do anything else. We do meetups, and it's just that we plan some meetups them together. Probably will not go in that path. But I've learned one thing: never say never.
So, like now we are in the midst of pandemic. How do you think the startup or the business or general the scenario will change after we get out of the lockdown?
So couple of things. It is very difficult to say because a lot of smart people are also not able to say that what will change. But what is in your hand is to improve your skills. So probably sales are not happening. You have what you have is your time, and so optimize a lot of processes in your business. Like you were sending emails in a certain way. You have sometimes to optimize what you are writing. So that is so each process of your business, which is not customer facing, because customer facing stuff has stopped. And you have time, just optimize everything, like the content of your website, the social media planning that you do. So optimize each of the process. So whenever situation improves, you will be ready to capitalize on that compared to a lot of other people. And that is something that we are following ourselves, and this is what we would recommend to people. That when it will open up, everybody is trying to figure out. But till the time that happens, just make sure that you are ready when that opens.
Right. So people are definitely going to come out with new skills, and some more
Yes,
competition will
these
have
are
to
just
face.
basic things, and you're very energized to capitalize. Typically, what will happen? People are worried. So, of course, there is nothing in your hand. So, you cannot blame people. Why are you not worried? Because if they are in problem, they'll be worried. But if you have time and a mental bandwidth, just improve each of the processes that you have. So on the day you are ready to capitalize on it.
So also, like, what do you think is the most important thing you need to keep in mind while you're selling, while you're just like selling your product or pitching to someone?
So probably empathy is important in sales, or probably in a lot of other aspects in your life. So instead of selling idea should be that person should feel really happy buying a product. Sometimes when we buy a product and we feel a little guilty that I bought this product but I paid this much amount.
Right.
I'm not getting that a greater value. So idea is that if you can if you can get that guy or a lady to feel that they are the happy moment, they are very happy buying your product. If you can make them feel that, that is a great sale. So that is a great situation to be into as a company. So and that is always our idea that somebody becomes a part of each other. They should feel really good that they become part of each other rather than worrying about that. Okay, and that is why those who have questions around that, we ask them and probably hold back. Don't take up annual membership, attend few meetups, and then you'll get a sense of what we are doing.
Okay.
So this is what we follow. And this is what, and because what happens is that you create ambassadors. Those who are genuinely happy with you, they'll bring 10 of their friends. See, as a business perspective, this also makes a lot of sense, and it makes your life easy, right? People are happy. You are part of the network. So you're not worried about facing your customers upfront. Typically, for a lot of businesses, facing customers is a very challenging. You sold them something, so now you are after other customer. So old customer comes back, and you probably will not be able to give same attention span to them. So idea is that ideally be in a situation where you can speak to your existing customers with the same enthusiasm that you will talk to a potential customer.
Right, right. So do you also hire employees, or it's just like a community of you running each
So
other?
we have two people, me and my partner. So I'm like a salesman of the company, like you could see in my t-shirt,
Yeah.
and my partner is an engineer. And we have a lot of volunteers. So like in each city, we have somebody who will moderate an event internationally also. So they get paid a certain amount. So idea is that we never get anything done for free from anyone. That was the idea. Before earlier, we were not making money, so we were not giving anything. Now that we make money, they get compensated for whatever time contribution that they would give for the child.
And so, what are um, the qualities or the values you would look out in an employee before hiring him or her?
Nice person, like, and that is what our, like, we are good people to be with. So a lot of these volunteers, of course, a lot of things are very understood, right? A lot of people volunteer for various initiatives. So explicitly, probably you need not mention that why somebody should be part of a certain initiative. So what I look for is that nice people, like people who are there with the right set of intentions, and then the rest will happen. That and they'll get value, we will get value. Thing that we are looking for.
Okay, so it's basically about creating a good vibe in the community and lifting each other again.
Correct, but you and those things you have to be skillful person. So those things are there, but more than that, the person has to be nice.
Okay, so I would also like to ask you, what are your favorite books that every student or every aspiring entrepreneur should read?
So I wrote this book. I not wrote. I read this book, Simplify, by Captain Gopinath,
Okay.
who's the founder of Air Deccan. That was an amazing book. So I got very fascinated with that.
Mhm.
But personally, he had a very interesting story about building his business. So that is one thing. And for the other things, what we would recommend, we started a book club in this COVID-19 lockdown situation. So that is something we always wanted to do. We never, due to this ease of setting up video conferencing. So every week we host a books and podcast club where we invite a different author to share his experiences and people from the community share their favorite books. So instead of me recommending everybody one book, we got people to recommend books to everybody. So personally, Simplify is the book that I would recommend. But those of you who are listening this discussion or watching this, we've started a books club. So if you're interested, probably you can reach out to us on our website or on social media.
Okay, so is it a separate like initiative, the book club, or it's within each eye and amongst the
Within each eye.
community?
So we are naming it Each Eye Books and Podcast Club.
Okay,
So within
so
each eye now we have various formats. This has become one of the format now.
okay, so does it have a different LinkedIn page that you would like to tell the audience?
Same one, Each Eye Network on LinkedIn and on Twitter.
Okay. So also like what is the one advice that you would like to give to all the people who are struggling building their own enterprise?
काम करो. This is my mantra. Execute. So sometimes what will happen is that since due to social media we have access to information. So
Right.
probably everybody knows everything how it works. The challenge is very few people are able to actually do it. So if you get into that zone, it's not knowing something is not just good enough. If you can just do it, do little more groundwork, then it becomes a huge competitive advantage in whatever you would want to pursue. So my advice would be add little that extra effort. So for example, if you talk about McDonald's, a lot of people read a lot about, so they will know a broader story about McDonald's, not little more about it. So if you can do that effort for the things that you want to make a career on, then that becomes a huge competitive advantage, and that is something I follow and I would recommend someone.
Okay, so it's about putting in the work and continuously not
Yeah,
giving
and
up.
so that's why it is important to choose the work that you would enjoy doing it.
Right.
That's why even if you put in little more hours, it will not feel like a work. But it's
Right.
easier said than done.
True. So there are a lot of people struggling to find their preferences and like what fits in best for them. So did you also had such kind of dilemma that like you had doubts in the starting if this would work for me or not?
So it took us 8 years to become a sustainable model. So there were doubts on what will happen.
Hmm.
So then like it was a dilemma that what will happen. But we were very clear that we will not compromise on this thing. So you build skills to make sure that you can pursue your dream or your initiative for longer. So we had built those skills. Those skills came handy when we wanted to make some money, not from each other, but from some other resources.
Okay.
So
So
being skillful comes very handy. So that is the central thing, and that will give you that extra time to keep on with your startup or your an idea.
absolutely. So like I would like to end this interview with a very my favorite question, which I love to hear from
Yep,
people. Which is your favorite quote?
awesome. So it is like Steve Jobs has mentioned this quote, and Rasmi Bansal has written a book. So partly inspired by them. More like so, what we say is that more problems, more solutions.
Okay,
Uh,
right.
if
Amazing.
you have a problem, then you will
Hmm.
get more solution. And then another, I use it in my email signature since the last 12 years. Another one is expect unexpected, expect good. So very optimistic view of that. And probably something may happen that you haven't expected, but if you think through and do certain things, it may turn out good for you.
So also, like, can you tell the audience in which all cities are you functioning right now, and how do they reach out to you?
So for India, if you go to echai.in, you'll discover but in 7 cities, we were very regular with physical meetups,
Okay,
where
and the
every
seven
week we will do
and the seven
the,
cities being.
the largest ones in India, like the Delhi, Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai, Ahmedabad.
Okay.
And there are another 15 cities where we will do meetups once in a month. And outside of India, another 14, 15 countries, we used to do monthly meetups. Due to lockdown, physical meetups have stopped. So now a lot of those things are moved online. So probably online meetup is like anybody can be part of those things. But
Okay.
once this situation improves, probably 6 months down the line, a year down the line, probably we'll end up doing those meetups again in a lot of those places.
So it was great talking to you, and I would also tell the audience to go check out each eye and all the hustlers to be a part of the community. It is it
Thank you so much.
yeah, I
Thank you
love the
so much.
vibe.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you so much, Mitti Ke Rang team and Amit, for giving me this opportunity to share our ideas.
Okay, so thank you. It was really great talking to you, and you definitely, I'm sure, you added value to the listeners.
Thank you so much.
So here I'll pause the recording. Just a second.
Yeah.